Welcome to the presentation, LinkedIn to Career Success, Strategies for Making LinkedIn Work for You. My name is Hema Nair, and I'm with the Career Center here at York. I'm so excited to have you all here today to see a packed room that's really exciting. And we're especially excited to have Steve Watt, Marketing Manager at LinkedIn, here with us. And Steve is also a York University graduate, so that's especially exciting. But before I do a formal introduction to Steve, I just want to remind you of a few things. For those of you who don't know, the Career Center is located at 202 McLaughlin College, which is in this complex, right around the corner and upstairs. So we have free services at the Career Center for all York students as well as new graduates. We have workshops, for example, such as what to do with my degree, making a great first impression, and dining etiquette. We have one-on-one services including resume feedback sessions, interview practice sessions, and career counseling. We also have mentoring and networking opportunities like career conversations panels where you have the opportunity to network and mingle with York University alumni. We have employer recruitment events where employers who are hiring come to campus to meet with you. And we also have TASTE, a really exciting program that allows you to go to lunch with alumni working in your field of interest. So please pick up a Career Center booklet in the back of the room or outside actually before you leave. It lists all the services that we have to offer. Check us out online, or better yet, come visit us at 202 McLaughlin College. Some housekeeping reminders before we get started. Please take a minute to turn off your cell phones if you haven't done so already. Please sign in at the registration table before you leave today. What we use the registration for is we will send you an online survey after this event to see what you thought of this event and how we can make it better in the future. If you need to leave at any time during the session, that's not a problem. Just please do so quietly so we don't disturb the discussion. So now, without further delay, I'm so excited to introduce our speaker today. Steve Watt is Marketing Manager at LinkedIn and a York University graduate. He directs Canadian marketing activities for LinkedIn's disruptive suite of talent acquisition products and services. Additionally, he leads several global content and thought leadership initiatives for corporate recruiters. He has a BA in philosophy from York University, yay philosophy grads, and an MBA from the Rodman School of Management. I'm personally so excited to see Steve today because I saw Steve speak a few months ago at a conference, and I was on LinkedIn at the time, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't understand what the purpose of it was, and after seeing Steve speak, I tweaked my profile a little bit, and I have to say it's changed the way I do my work. So I'm so excited to welcome Steve. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. This is great. Is my volume and pitch okay there in the back? Thumbs up from the back? All right, lots of thumbs up. I'm really excited to be here. As Hema said, I am a New York grad. I haven't been back very much. And while the inside of these buildings is really, really familiar to me, the outside is strange and scary. The parking, and wow, things have changed around here. This place is absolutely growing like wild. It's really, really exciting. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. This is a nice full room. This is awesome. You know, I have the tremendous pleasure of being part of a team that works with an amazing range of companies around the world, from small, local, and regional players all the way up to some of the largest multinationals, and across an incredible range of industries. And obviously, there's a huge amount of differences between those organizations, but there's also some things that they have in common. And one of those is an increasing appreciation of the vital importance of talent, of finding the best, hiring the absolute right people for those organizations. And this has really come to the forefront for organizations as one of the very few sustainable competitive advantages that they can avail themselves of in today's world. It's really hard to maintain a competitive advantage in technology or in all kinds of other areas because things change so fast. But when you hire the best and you hire the right people, you set your organization up for amazing success. And more companies are really embracing that. And increasingly, they're partnering with LinkedIn to help them to do that. And the other side of that coin, of course, is you guys. It's the talent. You're who they're looking for. And this is an exciting time for individuals. The opportunities to launch a career and to manage your career throughout your life are greater than they've ever been before. But there's a couple things you kind of got to get right. You got to be findable, and you got to put your best foot forward when you're found. And you got to know how to network. also, because so many ways that things used to get done, people used to get hired in the past, just don't work anymore. Things have really changed. Those who understand this and embrace it set themselves up for tremendous success. And those who don't understand it or don't embrace it are increasingly going to struggle. So thank you for being here, and I'm seeing you guys as the people who probably some of you are already thinking this way and just want to sort of sharpen up your game. That's awesome. Some of you, maybe this is new to you, and I welcome that as well. So that I can just sort of calibrate a little bit, can I get a show of hands for how many of you presently have a LinkedIn profile? Okay, pretty close to 100%. How many of you think that you're at least pretty good at LinkedIn? Decent profile, decently engaged, visit the site at least a couple times a week. Like, I'm not looking for superstars. How many of you feel you're just pretty good at it? Can I, okay, so about half, maybe 40%. So I think, and this is common when I speak at universities and colleges and other organizations, usually adoption is near 100%. Effective use is half or less. So that's great to know where we stand with that. Couple of things that I want to talk about. And just to be clear, I'm not going to be up here. It's not going to be death by PowerPoint. I got some slides because I want to show you guys some stuff. Then we're going to do some live demos, and we're going to have tons of time for questions. But before we do that, there we go. Anyone seen one of these crazy, colorful jellyfish before? Anyone? Nobody? One at the back. That's an in map. That is a visual representation of my network on LinkedIn. This is me here in the middle, and if this were live rather than just a screen grab, I'd be able to mouse over these, and every one of those little dots is someone who is in my LinkedIn network. And they're organized and color-coded based on what their connection is to me, where I know them from. And I find this stuff fascinating. I hope that at least some of you do. These are my LinkedIn colleagues, people who work at LinkedIn, also our closest customers, and those who are really kind of tightly woven into our world. And you see one color shade, this is North America. You go a little bit further afield, those are my European and Asian colleagues. Over here, a place called Spin Master Toys here in Toronto that I used to work at. Tons of people I'm connected to there. You see, there's hardly any connective tissue, hardly any connections. Hardly anyone at LinkedIn is connected to people at Spin Master, other than me and a couple others. And I look at this as sort of like reading the tea leaves of someone's career. That you look at this and you go, wow, here's a guy who moved from one world to a totally different world. I moved from consumer marketing to this B2B internet space, and not a lot of people make that move. And then I look at other people's in-maps, and they're like a brain. They're like tightly packed together. Everybody knows everybody. That's someone who stayed in the same career. They may have moved from company to company or from institution to institution, but they stayed in the same world, and everyone knows each other. I just find this really interesting because it's kind of a peek to how different people's professional graphs are, their connections. When I speak to nonprofit, like leaders of nonprofits, I say, you got a bunch of people over here that are your volunteers and your staff and everyone, and they all know each other. You probably want to reach a bunch of people over here in the corporate world, which are your potential board members, your potential donors. Who's the connective tissue? Who's connected to both of those worlds? And being able to look at this and sort of figure out how the professional world maps out today is a really cool thing. And you can do your own. You can go to linkedinlabs.com, LinkedInLabs.com, and you just sign in there. Anyone with a LinkedIn profile can do it, and you can generate your own in-map. You can share it through LinkedIn, and you can have some fun with it. I think it's pretty cool. I hope you do too. What we're here to talk about today, I kind of alluded to it there, is graphs, but not that kind of graph, this kind of graph, the connection graph, the nodes on a graph, and what draws them together, what connects them, because there are three really fundamentally powerful new graphs that are changing so much of the business world, and so much of the world beyond the business world, frankly. First off, there's the social graph. Facebook, I'm sure that near 100% of you are Facebook users. Facebook is the social graph. It's the people you know in your social life, your friends, your family, coming together, sharing information, sharing pictures, sharing stories. It's your social life graphed online, and it's profoundly powerful for what it is. The other big graph, or a other big graph that's changing the world, is Twitter. Twitter is an interest graph. And what I mean by that is it's not so much on Twitter, not so much who you're connected to, it's why and what they're talking about. You follow people who you're interested in. I follow a lot of writers, a lot of business publications, political leaders, all kinds of people who I'm very, very interested in what they have to say. So regardless of who I am and who they are, it's the interest, it's the bonding around a particular topic that brings us together. And then that's the sort of the long-term interest graph on Twitter. And then of course there's the short-term interest graph, and that's hashtags. And I'll go to a conference, let's say this week, and there'll be a hashtag for that conference. And there'll be all kinds of conversation around who's speaking and what sessions are good and what's going on, and everything, all the conversation coalesces around that hashtag. And then the next week, I'm off somewhere else, those people are off somewhere else. We have no particular need or desire to connect with each other on Facebook or on LinkedIn, because now we're gathering around a new campfire, around a new topic the next week, and hashtags enable us to do that. So Twitter has got this awesome long-term and short-term interest graph. And the other big graph, of course, is your professional graph, and that's what LinkedIn is. LinkedIn is your professional network. It's everyone in your past and in your present who has an impact on your professional life. And when you're young, you're a student, you're soon to graduate, it may not be a particularly large network, and that's fine. But this is something that you should grow and cultivate throughout your careers, because it's an incredibly powerful thing. I've been cultivating my network now for about 6 or 7 years on LinkedIn. And believe me, it's not about just trying to get massive numbers of connections. I have about 900 connections. I could have 9,000 if I wanted to. I don't want that many. I only want to be connected to people I actually know and care about, and I know that I could help them sometime in their life, in their professional life, and they can help me. And through that network, I have connections into an astounding range of organizations in Canada, the US, and even a little bit in Europe and Asia, that I know if I were ever to lose my job, I would never be unemployed for long. I would be able to tap that powerful network, and I'd be back on my feet so quickly. And you just can't put a price tag on how valuable that is. You can't wait until you need it to turn that thing up. You gotta be cultivating that professional graph throughout your career, and it will serve you well for years and for decades to come. And LinkedIn, as I said, is increasingly where organizations are looking for talent and where individuals are managing their professional lives and their professional graphs. The growth has been astounding. Over 200 million members on LinkedIn now, more than 7 million in Canada. And the amazing thing is, anywhere I speak, as I said, I ask for that show of hands and almost every hand goes up. Everyone's already on LinkedIn, it seems. Yet between 40 and 50,000 Canadians join every week. That to me is an astounding number at this point in our growth. And what that tells me is we are heading to a time where it's going to be everybody. I mean, that's a powerful, powerful professional network. So why are all these people here? Now, there was a time, let's go back a few years, where you only went to LinkedIn if you're looking for a job. At least that was the perception. And that is absolutely no longer the case. It is now all about managing your professional life. It's your professional identity. We're going to talk more about this. It's your professional brand. It's who you are as a business person, as a professional in whatever industry you're in. That is represented on LinkedIn. It's also increasingly where you gather insights on your industry. The amount of business and academic and social information flowing through LinkedIn every day is absolutely amazing. You can follow amazing opinion leaders, thought leaders. You can increasingly, they're using LinkedIn as a primary publishing platform. I mean, the insights available on LinkedIn are staggering. And as a result, people aren't just coming to LinkedIn to look for a job. They're coming to LinkedIn every day to make them better at the job that they have. It's a lifelong commitment to learning and to building their professional reputation. We really see that in the third piece here. We're calling it everywhere. Mobile, of course, is huge. more than a quarter of LinkedIn traffic now comes from mobile devices. And the fact that people are pulling out their phones and pulling out their tablets and looking at LinkedIn when they're on the go tells me that LinkedIn has really become integral to the daily life of the professional. And that's a powerful thing. And companies recognize this. This is the graph that I show to corporate talent acquisition leaders. And this is the one that gets them excited because their whole job is about hiring. It's about attracting and hiring the best talent in the world. And they've been doing it for years on job boards and things like that. And with greater or lesser success. But what I point out to them is that when they're on job boards, they're seeing these people. They're seeing the active job seekers. These are the people who go to job boards, go to corporate recruitment sites. These are the people who have up-to-date resumes. These are the people who are really looking for a job and ready to jump at any kind of decent opportunity. And so many companies are fighting over these folks. And they're missing this giant blue area, which is what we call passive talent. It's the professionals out there who are too busy living their lives and working in their jobs, in some cases being excellent in their jobs. They're not going to career sites, they're not going to job boards, but companies increasingly are tapping into LinkedIn to find those people and say, instead of hiring the best of who's available, they want to hire the best, full stop. Who's the best mobile developer in the industry? Who's the best nurse technician in this area? Who's the best, communications professional in this area? Whatever it is, they want to find them and they want to engage them. And this is a really powerful thing. And this is why I say that you need to make this investment as a long-term commitment in your career, because you may use LinkedIn initially to launch your career when you're graduating, but stick with it, engage, become a valued, high-profile member of the community, and throughout the rest of your career, you will find that recruiters are actively looking for people like you because they're fishing in this big pond over here for the next superstar in their organization. This just came out, eMarketer.com. It was Monday, a couple days ago anyways. Social media channels used to successfully place a candidate, according to staffing professionals in North America. LinkedIn absolutely dominates the other platforms. So yes, there are people finding jobs on Facebook. Yes, there are people finding jobs on Twitter and Google Plus and elsewhere. But make no mistake, when you are looking for a job or you are looking to improve your career trajectory, LinkedIn is where it's happening. So what I want to talk about here is standing up from the crowd. I want to talk about networking for career success, because as I said, things have changed a lot in the way things work today. And then hopefully a lot of questions. I love taking questions. And sometimes the best content in these conversations comes out from great questions from the audience. So I'll ask you when we get to that stage, please don't be shy. If you have a question that has any potential relevance to others in the audience, in addition to yourself, those are the best ones, obviously. Sometimes people have questions that are very unique to their own very unique situation. Those ones probably come see me after. I'm happy to stay as long as is necessary afterward, but hopefully we'll get a real good conversation going. So, how do you stand out from the crowd on LinkedIn? And I'm going to make it the top 7 tips. There is no definitive list of how to do this. I've done this top 10 tips, I've done top 5 tips. I'm doing 7 today in honor of one of my childhood heroes, Lanny McDonald. Nobody rocks a mustache like Lanny. And the reason I do it is I lead LinkedIn's Movember initiative. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Movember, the month when those of us who don't sport facial hair particularly well, we do it anyways in November. We do it in November, and we raise money, we raise awareness for men's health. I lead LinkedIn's global initiative of hundreds of mustache growers in 13 countries, and we raised almost $100,000 last year, and we're looking to double that next year. And this is an important part of what I'm about, my professional brand, what makes me separate from the crowd. So I actually, during the month of November, I put mustache pictures on my LinkedIn profile. Sometimes kind of climbing around ones like at the top, sometimes more straightforward ones at the bottom. And sometimes people will say to me, well, is that professional? Like, this isn't Facebook. Are you supposed to do that? And it's about what's relevant to your professional life. To me, leading a global Movember initiative is really relevant to me as a professional. So absolutely I do it. I would not be putting a picture of me with a beer at the party on the weekend. LinkedIn. That's a Facebook photo. So I put this up here to get people thinking about the fact that LinkedIn is not your resume, it's your brand. This is really important. If you think of things through this filter of brand, and the best way I can illustrate that is think about Coca-Cola, one of the greatest brands in the world, loved by hundreds of millions of people around the world. It's a powerful, emotionally engaging brand. Read the list of ingredients. Is there anything there that you actually want to drink? I mean, the ingredients are nothing like the brand. The ingredients are like boring and far from engaging. I think of resumes like your list of ingredients. It's your school, your work, okay, it's important, yeah. But ultimately, I don't want to read it. Most other people don't want to read it either. It's boring, it's dry. Your brand, however, is so much more than that. Your brand is what makes you a successful professional. So how do you think brand on LinkedIn? Well, for one thing, get that photo up on your profile. Profiles with photos on them get 7 times more views than those without. And I'm not sure what the exact numbers are across the network, but I can tell you within my network of 900 or so people, I would estimate at least 800 of them have photos up. Increasingly, if you do not, you're kind of looking a little bit like, well, why not? Make it a professional photo, and when I say that, that doesn't mean it has to be taken by a professional photographer, but it's professional. You're dressed appropriately. You're not cropping someone's arm out of there because it's a picture from a wedding. You're not, it's not you on the beach with sunglasses and your dog. I mean, think professional. This is an important part of your professional brand. The other thing is the headline. Now, your headline is an opportunity to tell a little bit of a story about who you are and what your professional brand is. And it doesn't have to just default to, student at York University or, sales manager at such and such. You can be a lot more creative than that. And the trick is to think about who is your audience and who is going to find your profile and what do you want them to draw from it. So one of my colleagues here, Denise, her headline is work for us at LinkedIn Europe. She's a recruiter in our Dublin office. She's staffing our operations across Europe. That's entirely what she's about. If you want to work for LinkedIn in Europe, you want to talk to Denise. If you don't want to work for LinkedIn in Europe, you probably don't have any reason to talk to Denise, nor does she have any reason to talk to you. It's pretty much that straightforward. So rather than her headline saying, I don't even know what her title is, senior recruitment manager, EMEA region, who cares? Work for LinkedIn Europe. That's what hers is, and it works for her. Dan Shapiro is one of our most senior executives at LinkedIn, and his is a little more conceptual, I guess. Building the new model for talent acquisition, B2B sales and marketing. That's kind of a variation of LinkedIn's mission statement. I mean, we're changing the way organizations hire, the way they market, and the way they sell. And Dan is one of the leaders of that. So he's speaking to what he's doing within our organization, but also to what our organization is doing more broadly. And that's appropriate for a senior executive like himself. Our CEO, he goes with the default, CEO at LinkedIn, nothing more. When he speaks to the press, when he speaks to the financial community, make no mistake that Jeff speaks for LinkedIn. It would not be appropriate, I don't think, for him to have a more creative title. CEO is enough said for him. So think about who you are and where you aspire to be. And I've had some students ask me, well, how does that work in the student world? And some of the best student ones I've seen are people when they say like, I'm a engineering student and aspiring aerospace professional, or I'm a marketing student and aspiring consumer packaged goods professional or something. Then I get a sense of where you are today and where you want to be in a really authentic way. So find a voice that's right for you, but remember that picture and that headline is sometimes all that someone's going to glance at before they decide whether to look further or not. Another thing is write a summary. I don't even think summary is a default section when you set up a basic profile. I think it just goes straight to work experience. You got to add the summary section. It's important. It's your elevator pitch. It's that quick little statement of who you are, what you deliver, and why anyone should care. And failing to have a summary, you're really shortchanging yourself. The top one, and there's no set standard for what they ought to look like. I just say, make it interesting, Write it in the first person so it sounds authentic. Don't say, Steve is this and Steve is that. No, I say, I am. And make it relevant. The top one is mine. The bottom one is one of my colleagues in the US who's just super passionate about the education space. The point here is, if someone gets past your quick glance at your headline, the next thing they're going to glance at is your summary to see if you're in any way relevant to them. So take advantage of it and don't make it real long because people won't read it if you do. Recommendations and skills endorsements. These really power a profile in a number of ways. I mean, I don't know about you, but I won't buy many consumer products, especially electronics, until I go to Amazon and I read consumer reviews. I don't really care what the company tells me, that this is the greatest TV in the history of the world. I want to read what individuals have to say about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that is increasingly vital in consumer marketing. Well, think about recommendations as your consumer reviews, your peer reviews, people that you have worked with in the past, former employers, mentors, professors, whoever it may be, who can vouch for who you are and what you're all about. Getting some of those onto your profile is really, really powerful. And another way of thinking about it is they can say things about you that you can't say about yourself. If I write in my profile that I am awesome, then I just look like an idiot. If someone else says, Steve is awesome, I worked with him and he was the best, project lead I ever worked with, cha-ching, that's wonderful for me. So they're not only validating the accuracy and truthfulness of your profile, they're also adding some of that color that it would be a little cheesy if you tried to add yourself. And when you're reaching out to people and asking them to recommend you, please don't use the boilerplate. If you ask for recommendation, the whole thing says, I would like you to recommend me, but delete, write your own. Better yet, send them an email. Better yet, pick up the phone. Talk to these people, say, look, I'm upgrading my LinkedIn profile. I have tremendous respect for you, and I hope that based on when we worked together a couple of years ago, or when I was in your class, or whatever it is, I hope that I left a positive impression on you. And if you would take 10 minutes out of your busy day to write me a recommendation, it would mean a lot to me. And if you take that kind of approach, the vast majority of people that you reach out to, assuming you're reaching out to appropriate connections, they're going to do it for you. But if you just send that generic, oh, please recommend me, they're left with the impression that you're probably sending that to 100 people, and they probably don't matter, and they're probably not going to do it for you. So take the human approach, and this goes to so many other things. Just because LinkedIn is online doesn't mean that we're any less human. Sometimes people forget that, and they start using, they don't take the time to invest in human relationships. It's a big mistake. So get some recommendations. It's quality over quantity. You don't need a lot of them. But 2, 3, 4 recommendations from relevant people saying good, honest things about you goes a long way to bolstering your profile. And recently we added more of the light touch, skills endorsements. Basically it's a one-click endorsement. Rather than taking 10 minutes to write something, you identify particular skills. This is some from my profile here. You would identify particular skills, and then other people can one-click endorse them and say, yeah, Steve is good at digital marketing. Yeah, he is good at social media marketing and marketing strategy. And it's super, super light touch for them. It takes them a second, literally. So it's a great way to endorse others who are relevant, and hopefully some of the good karma will come back to you as well. Every employee is an ambassador. I put this may seem like more of a corporate thing rather than an individual thing. And I actually take this from my corporate deck that I use for talent acquisition leaders. But the reason I speak to you about it is because I really want to take head on I want to go head on and dispel that notion that some people have that, oh, I don't want to be active on LinkedIn, don't want my boss thinking that I'm looking to quit, looking for another job. Those days have passed. Being active on LinkedIn is now like a standard practice for professionals around the world. And when they do that, when they not only shine a good light on themselves, but they shine a good light on the organization that they work for, the great projects they're involved in, the success their organization's having, that reflects really, really well on the organization as well as on the individual. And increasingly, corporate leaders are getting this, the light bulb's going on. And rather than them being afraid of their employees being on LinkedIn, like maybe they were 5 years ago, now they're actively engaging and actively encouraging their employees to get on LinkedIn, build a robust profile, be a good member of the community, because because it looks good on everyone. So don't be afraid to be on LinkedIn when you're working. Don't think you're just going to use LinkedIn to get your job and then you're going to forget about it for 5 years until you're going to look for your second job. Be active right away. Don't let anyone tell you that that means you're a dissatisfied employee. Far from it. It means that you are an ambassador for your organization as well as for yourself. Another way of standing out from the crowd on LinkedIn is to really engage your network. Okay, so we got you at the point now where you got a nice profile. Think field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. Well, you know what? Probably not. You have this nice profile. Who's going to look at it? If you're not engaged on LinkedIn, there's not a whole lot of people who are necessarily going to see you, or at least not as many. So how do you raise your profile? Well, one thing is sharing news and information that's relevant to your industry or your area of interest. Just like you see the Facebook share and the Twitter share button on publishers' websites, now you see the in-share button on almost all of them. And so you can take news, up-to-the-minute news that's relevant to your industry and your area of interest, share it and add comments to it. Say why you're sharing it. This is a great article. This author absolutely pinpoints this, or I really disagree with the point when she says that, because I think that it's X and not Y. Show that you're passionate about the topics that are relevant to you and knowledgeable. You're staying on people's radar because this is pushing out throughout your network and being seen by a lot of people. You're also raising your own profile as a thought leader in your area. It's like, wow, Steve is always talking about this stuff. He always seems to know. He's on top of the news. He's got intelligent comments to make about these things. When I need to hire someone for that next role in that area, I'm thinking about Steve. So think about how you can not just have a good profile, but how you can raise your profile. Sharing, commenting on things that other people share, liking. Sometimes the comments turn into really robust debates and they're wonderful. Other times they don't. Sometimes it's a light touch. It's just a like here, it's a brief comment there. But stay active, stay on people's radar. Groups are how you can extend your reach beyond your network. What I've been talking about thus far is how to stand out from the crowd within your network. You want to take it to the next level. You want to get involved in groups. There's more than 2 million groups on LinkedIn where people have come together around particular topics and industries. And some of those groups there's nothing going on. A lot of them, however, are really, really robust communities. So the first thing you do when you check out a group, you just search for groups, think about topics, think about industries that are relevant to you. As soon as you see a group, go into the little analytics tab for it. See what's going on with this group. Is this group worth my time? Because like I said, they're not all. Look at this one here, Environmental Consulting Professionals, almost 36,000 members, 89 discussions in the last week, 42 jobs were posted in this group in the last week, 366 comments. This is a vibrant community. Anyone who is either already in this industry or aspires to be in this industry, you gotta be in this group. And there's groups like this for an astounding array of industries and topics. Find them and become a good community member. Don't go barging into groups. I tell recruiters, don't go barging into groups just posting jobs. You kind of seem like a spammer. Well, the individual side of that point is don't go in there like just trying to connect with everyone and just like being this, whirling activity. You'll kind of turn people off in most cases. Think about it like a cocktail party. If you walk into a cocktail party and immediately just start talking about yourself, people are going to be backing away from you. Well, this is just the online version of that. Go into that environment and listen and learn. See what the vibe is. Is it the kind of place where communications are all very kind of, subdued and professional, or is it a little more freewheeling? Take the pulse of it and see who's who and what's going on, and then start adding value. Start sharing information, start joining in conversations, start commenting, start raising your profile. And before long, you'll find that your network of individuals in the industries and fields that are most interesting and most relevant to you are really growing by leaps and bounds. Number 5, LinkedIn Today. This is a quick one. You've probably all seen it right at the top of your homepage. It's a bunch of news popping up there. It's not random, and it's totally customizable. You can go in there and adjust what industries you're most interested in. and then just the news from those industries will surface, and it's the most shared and most commented upon news from the industries that you're interested in, bubbling up to the top of your news feed every day. 5 minutes spent in there, you're on top of the day's news in your industry, and you're not caught off guard when you're talking to someone later and they say, hey, did you hear about the big acquisition, or did you hear about the big news, or whatever. So tune those things so that the right stuff is popping up for you, and spend 5 minutes in there every day. It's also a great place to find news that you can just share through your network, back to the point from a few minutes ago. Number 6, follow companies. If you're interested in working for a company, follow them. If they're a company that you recognize as a leader in their field, and it's a field that you're interested in, follow them. Because just as individuals push out status updates and share information, so do companies. And companies cultivate followership because they know that followers are a great source of potential hires for them. If you're following Pepsi, there's probably a decent, I mean, maybe you're just interested in them because they're known as good marketers, but you probably have some kind of interest in working for them, and Pepsi knows that. So when you follow a company, you're kind of raising your hand a little bit, saying, I might be interested in you one day. They might take notice, but also you'll be amongst the first to see their latest news, see their latest job openings, all kinds of information that they're pushing out to their followers. So follow the companies that are of interest to you, and you'll learn interesting things too. I learned Chevron is big in solar energy. I had no idea. I just thought they were a petroleum player. You'll see super cool things that companies are doing. They're posting videos about their latest products. I mean, you can really be on top of industries because you're seeing this stuff before other people do. And of course, jobs. Like I said, before others are seeing them, they're pushing those jobs out to their followers. So follow the companies that are of interest to you. And my final thing is not following companies, but following individuals. This is a very new development on LinkedIn, this asymmetrical followership model, kind of like the way Twitter is. Now, unlike Facebook and generally unlike LinkedIn, it doesn't have to be a two-way connection on Twitter. You can just follow someone. Well, I'm pretty sure that Richard Branson and Barack Obama and these guys are not going to want to connect with me on LinkedIn. But I'm really interested in what they have to say. So we have recently launched what we call the Influencers Program, and we've restricted it to just a few hundred people around the world. Absolute top-level political, business, academic, social leaders. And we're slowly growing. We've got more than 10,000 leaders who said, I want to be one of your influencers, but we're being very, very careful with who we allow to become a LinkedIn influencer. We truly want to keep it really, really high level. And you can go in and follow these guys. I mean, Richard Branson has accumulated well over 1 million, I think coming up on 1.5 million followers in just a few months. And it's really cool. They're using this as a primary publishing platform. So you're reading, when you follow someone here, you're not just seeing little status updates from them. You're seeing more like full-on blogging. And it's the first place that they're releasing a lot of their latest thoughts. So following influencers is a really cool way to stay on top of what's going on in the world so they're interested to you. That's how you make yourself stand out from the crowd. What I want to talk about now, I want to get rid of the slides and I want to go online and I want to show you a few things. Security settings sounds really boring, but it's actually something that you should know about. And it helps you to network more effectively. Then we're going to talk about jobs on LinkedIn, how you find them, how they're different from job postings on job boards, and how you effectively network your way into conversations with those companies. We're going to talk specifically about student jobs, career pages if we have time. That's just basically where companies are posting a bunch of cool stuff. And then alumni tool. I'm really excited to show you the alumni tool because there's a lot of York University alum on LinkedIn and they are a powerful, powerful key to your networking success. So I'm just going to jump out of PowerPoint here. Bear with me one moment. Okay, so we're on the LinkedIn homepage. Like I said, I want to start with security settings. So if you mouse over your name up here, once you signed on to LinkedIn, mouse over your name, click settings. All the stuff that you may want to control is here. You probably have to sign in again. You guys ever look at the thing, one of the most viewed things is who's viewed your profile? You know, on the right-hand side, you know, who's been looking at me? Everyone's curious. And you ever wonder why sometimes you see full information on them, their name, their picture, all that stuff, and other times it's like totally stealth, you know, LinkedIn member. You can control what footprints you leave or don't leave behind as you're checking out other people on LinkedIn. And that's right here. Select what others see when they view your profile. So I actually went on anonymous today for a little while. I usually don't. I'm like full headlights on. I have no problem with people knowing I'm checking out their profile. Sometimes, because I work for LinkedIn, I look at a lot of people's profiles. I'm always looking for examples of people doing great things. And sometimes I don't want to be leaving my calling card behind all the time, because then they're kind of thinking, why is some guy from LinkedIn checking me out? Is this weird or something? So I'll sometimes go stealth for a little while, check people out. But in my day-to-day business dealings, I always leave the headlights on here. And think about when you're networking, seeking a job, this is a great way of showing people, keeping your profile up and showing them that you're doing your research. Everyone says research, right? You gotta know about a company. Well, if I'm a recruiter and you've applied for a role in my company, and I see that you've viewed my profile, and then I talk to the hiring manager and you've viewed her profile, and maybe you've viewed the executives' profiles, you look like you're really doing your homework. You look like you are actually seriously interested in learning more about us, and you're not just someone out there who's applying to 100 different companies just looking for any old job. So generally speaking, you want to keep your lights on and let people know that you've been checking out their profile. But if for any reason you don't, feel free, just flick it over to anonymous here, save settings, and your lights are off. And I gotta be clear on this, because I get asked, people say, well, if I have a premium subscription with LinkedIn, I pay all this money, can I see through that? No. LinkedIn is hardcore about members first, and you're the members. The free users are the members. We're hardcore about that. If you say, I don't want people to know that I've been on their profile, it doesn't matter whether they're a $5 million a year corporate client of ours, they don't see that you're looking on their profile. These security settings are ironclad. Another thing that's good to know is activity broadcasts. Sometimes people will say, I'm a little leery about updating my profile and doing all this stuff because I know it's going to send a status update through my network, and I don't want my boss wondering why I'm doing all this stuff and everything. You don't have to. Just click on here. It defaults to letting people know that you're updating your profile. Just untick that, save your settings, and now you can go ahead and update your profile to your heart's content without it pushing it through your network. There's other things in here you can control. Hema asked about email preferences. Sometimes people are saying, I'm getting too many emails from LinkedIn. What's going on here? You can go in here, you can say, these emails I'm receptive to, these ones I'm not. I'm receptive to this kind of frequency and not this kind of frequency. Same with groups. Sometimes people join a bunch of groups and then they start getting a bunch of emails about activity updates in those groups, and they're like, whoa, too much. Go in here, you can change it all. You can say, don't ever send me a group update. Or you can say, send me a highlight once a week, or whatever you're interested in. All of this stuff lives under the settings tab here. So please make it work for you. Jobs. Number of places one finds jobs on LinkedIn. First off, when you're here on the home page, reading your news, keeping up to date with your colleagues and so forth, you'll see jobs you may be interested in. The better, the more robust and accurate your profile is, the more appropriate those jobs will be for you. When we know your industry, your education, your geography, your level within your level of seniority and so forth, we can match that really nicely with jobs that may be relevant for you. So you'll see some really cool things here. I'm a marketing guy in Toronto, so not surprisingly, look at what I'm getting. Product marketing, online marketing, media marketing, all good matches for me. And I can click over here, see more, and look at a bunch more jobs. So that's the first place. That's back to that passive candidate story I said. You're not even looking for a job, and some cool opportunities are coming your way. But of course, if you are looking for a job, you're going to click on the Jobs tab. And you're going to see a lot of cool things. First off, jobs you may be interested in. So this we've just talked about. You're going to see more of them. Jobs in your network. This is an interesting thing. People always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, there's some truth to that. When you can network your way into a conversation with a company, you're in a much stronger position than someone who's just submitted a resume. Great place to start is the people in my network, who do they work for? And what jobs do those companies have available? Because I've already got a really easy, warm path into a conversation with those. So I can see there's a ton of really good companies here that are hiring, and I have some kind of connection into those organizations. So that's a great place to be. Now, you may not see what you want there. You can always just do search. So now here it's starting to look a bit like a job board, right? I'm going to search. You can search on job boards like this. You can see a bunch of jobs. You can go into them, see what the requirements are. That's pretty standard. What makes LinkedIn way more powerful is you can see your warm path into a conversation with that organization, and not just the details of the job. So I'm looking at some media stuff here, and when you see these connection to the poster or people in your network, that's where the gold is, right? So I can go into any of these. I'm going to see basic job description, all that kind of stuff here. But I'm going to see who I'm linked into. So this is a job. What was this? Media buyer at Orion Trading. This is not pre-planned. I'm just winging this. So media buyer at Orion Trading. I have 3 second-degree connections at Orion Trading. And just to be clear, make sure we're all clear on this. If you and I are connected to each other on LinkedIn, we're first-degree connections. If you two are connected to one another, you're first degree, you and I are second degree, right? We're not connected to each other, but we're both connected to you. So if I want to network my way to you, I'm asking you for an introduction. Second-degree connections are gold. Second-degree connections are how things get done. When you build a good network, and you just think about the exponential math. You've got 100, so you got 100 people in your network, and they each have 100 in their network. That's potentially 10,000 second-degree connections. Now, there may be some overlap, so it might not be 10,000, it might be 7,000, whatever. That's still a whole lot of second-degree connections. And that's based on network sizes of 100. What about when you start talking about networks of 400, 500, 600 people? I mean, you start talking about hundreds of thousands of second-degree connections. That is incredibly powerful. So if I'm interested in this media buyer role at Orion, I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if I had a first-degree connection at Orion? But not so likely. But I got second-degree, next best thing. So I see that a managing director, nice, senior VP, and VP of media investment are all second-degree connections. So if I want to reach out, elevate myself out of the stack of resumes and become a real person with some real engagement with this organization, I want to find a way to reach out to one of these individuals. So let's just pick here. So it was a media buying role, so vice president, media investment. Sounds like she might be my boss or maybe my boss's boss at this new role that I'm going after here. So I can go check out Joanna. I can learn more about her and her organization, and I can see who my connection is to her. So I'm connected to Gabrielle, and Gabrielle is also connected to Joanna. So although I don't know Joanna, I am, after I've done a little bit of homework about Joanna and about Orion, I'm reaching out to my friend Gabrielle and saying, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can you hook me up? Would you be willing to introduce me to Joanna? And I want to stress here, this is, remember I said before about quality over quantity with building your network and why I've got, fewer connections than I potentially could have. If I don't know Gabrielle, she doesn't know me because we just kind of randomly connected with each other 5 years ago, well then she's not going to be much help to me, is she? She can't introduce me to her friend. Or if maybe Gabrielle and Joanna don't really know each other, then she can't be much help to me either. So when we all cultivate networks of people that we truly know, then that becomes really powerful. I have helped many people in my network get introduced to a second-degree connection, and many of them in turn have helped me because we cultivate networks for quality rather than quantity. So start by looking at the jobs that may be interested to you, but then the more interesting thing is, what is your warm path into a conversation with that organization? Another thing, linkedin.com/student jobs. Same functionality, but hones in on internships and entry-level post-grad jobs. It's sort of stripping out all those senior executive sort of roles. And there's a lot of them here as well. I think there's usually hundreds and hundreds in Canada. We've got 585 Canadian student and thereabouts jobs on LinkedIn right now. And again, just pop into any of them. So here's a warehouse supervisor. Supervisor doesn't necessarily sound like super entry level, but at least it's not an executive level role. So I go in here and I can see who I've got connections into. Like again, I got some second degree connections. So let's say I want to reach out to John here. I'm just going to figure out who John is. I'm going to learn about him. 2 people in my network. So Maria or Ryan, both connected to John. So if I'm interested in that job, I'm doing my homework, then I'm seeking my warm connection into a conversation with John. Be respectful when you're doing this, obviously. If people are constantly being inundated with requests for introductions and so forth, especially if they're not particularly relevant, it's this job, at this level and you're not there yet, and you might rub people the wrong way. So just be really thoughtful about it. Do your homework. Make sure that this is a role that's relevant for you, that you've got the sorts of skills and experience that they are truly going to be looking for. And be respectful of people's time. Don't reach out with that, the old like, hey, can we have coffee? There's only so many times in a week that someone is gonna go have coffee with anyone, let alone their closest friends and colleagues. I usually try to have just a quick little email conversation with someone who's got really low commitment on their part. Maybe that grows into a phone call. Maybe that grows into something more. If you actually ask someone to take a moment or two to help you out initially, you're gonna have a far greater success rate than if you start out saying, hey, can we meet for coffee on Friday? So just something to think about. But the point is, you're networking your way into opportunities. You're elevating yourself above that stack of resumes. The other thing I want to show you, now you may say, especially when you're getting started and you don't have a huge connection base, you don't have a ton of second degree connections all over the place, like you will in time. How do you get going then? Well, that's where you want to leverage York alumni, because the likelihood of a York graduate who came before you being willing to help you, even though they don't know you, is much greater than a random person on the street. There's an affinity there, and especially if you come out of perhaps the same major, or there's something else that bonds you together, the likelihood that they may be willing to help you is pretty good. So how do you find them? What you do here, from anywhere on LinkedIn, mouse over contacts, and you'll see underneath here, you'll see the school or schools that you have attended. So I'm just going to click into York. If for whatever reason you want to change and look at alumni from other schools, you can. Just click change school here, but presumably all of your profiles mention York, so it's going to be right there as a default. Go in here, expand this out a little bit. We've got 75,000 or so York University graduates on LinkedIn. We can see where they live. We can see the top companies that they're employed at. We can see the functions that they're in. We can see their majors. We can see their self-identified skills. A lot of information. Believe me, much better information than most alumni associations have about their own alum. This is powerful stuff. They're really excited about it, but you can use it as well. And you can use it in a number of ways. I like to think of it as sort of mapping forward or mapping backwards. And what I mean by that is the forward approach would be, where am I today and where is this likely to take me? So let's say that I am at York and I'm studying psychology. So I'm just going to click psych button here. And now 75,000 has boiled down to the 5,288 psychology graduates from York who are on LinkedIn. Well, where are they? Here's the top employers. Here's the fields that they've gone into: education, HR, sales, community services, healthcare services. Interesting stuff. Okay, well, I'm particularly interested in, I'm a psychology graduate and, community and social services. That sounds like a cool thing to me. Let's see. Here's the organizations in those fields that are employing York graduates. So I can get an idea, depending on what I'm studying and what areas I'm interested in, of what organizations those who come before me have landed in. And then if I want to go further, I can say, okay, well, show them to me. So let's go here, CAMH. I don't know this area, so I'm not exactly sure who that is. But there are 7 psychology grads from York in the community and social services field working for an organization called CAMH. And I scroll down and there they are. So now I can see these people. If I'm a psych major or grad from here, these people are kind of where I want to be. And if I reach out to them in the right way, now sometimes if they happen to be second-degree connections, bonus, right? Now you've got a double affinity. You've got an alumni connection. You've also got that personal, hey Bob, would you introduce me to Genevieve? But I don't have second-degree connections here. What I've got is an alumni connection. So I can pop into their profiles, I can learn more about them, and I can reach out to them. So that's what I look at as the sort of mapping forward from where I am today. And I'm just going to clear the filters, and let's take it the other way around, mapping backwards. Where do I want to go? What do I want my career to look like? And how did people get there? So, maybe I'm really interested in consulting. So I'm going to click on consulting. So there's 4,400 York University grads in consulting. Where do they work? Okay, some big banks, some government, some retail. Interesting. Well, Deloitte. Wow, Deloitte's got a fantastic reputation. How about consultants at Deloitte? So there's 14 York grads who are working as consultants at Deloitte. What did they study at York? I'm having a hard time figuring out my major. Well, no surprise, a number of them business majors, but not entirely. There's some other things, some HR management, some computer science, some engineering. So I can start saying, where do I want to be? And how do I look, how do I build a path to there? And again, I can scroll down and see who the real people are. So the York grads who are consultants at Deloitte are these folks right here. So if I want to reach out to maybe ask for a little career advice, maybe would they have done something differently had they been starting all over again? Here they are right here. I got a couple of second-degree connections, beautiful. But even without them, I can still leverage that alumni connection. So this alumni tool is taking the incredible data of LinkedIn and making it available to you in ways that were absolutely unheard of, even a year or two ago. I mean, this is brand new. So, get in there, play with it, and it can be really fascinating stuff for career management. And it can really help you to launch your career effectively and to manage it throughout your career. And that's really what I wanted to run through. I mean, companies are thinking differently, so you have to think differently. Make yourself stand out from the crowd and network like a pro. And LinkedIn gives you the opportunities and the tools to do all of that. And I hope that all of you can embrace that and have just fantastic careers. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm hoping that there may be some questions. Yes?
What's the difference between the premium and the free version of LinkedIn?
Right. The question was, what's the difference between the premium and the free? For most people, there's absolutely no reason why you would need or want a premium subscription. Premium subscriptions give you greater visibility into the network, where you can see beyond your third-degree connections. You can see out into the hundreds of millions of people out there. It gives you more tools for in-mails, which are ways of sending on-platform message to someone who you're not connected with. And there's some other filters for looking at things. Where this stuff is really valuable is salespeople, business development people. Imagine that you're in a sales role and you sell IT solutions to mid-sized manufacturing companies in Canada. And your primo target is the chief technology officer of those organizations. You want access to every CTO in a mid-sized organization in Canada. A premium subscription will enable you to find and contact those people. So that is super valuable to you if you're an outbound salesperson or a business development person. For most people, you don't need that. You just gotta have a strong profile and engage and network like a pro. You don't have to spend the time doing that. Other questions? Oh.
If possible, if you have a question, if you could stand here so we can get it on camera.
Sure, that would be great. I'll also do my best to remember to repeat questions, but if you would go with the mic, that would be awesome. Just while we're waiting for someone to, someone's at the mic, fantastic. First dibs goes to anyone at the mic. If there's no one at the mic, then I'll pick others. Yes?
So I did new with LinkedIn, so how much the cost for yearly annual fee, whatever? Do they have to pay for annual fee too?
For individuals?
Yeah.
No. For the great majority of people spend nothing on LinkedIn and don't need to spend anything on LinkedIn. Build a profile, engage, do all this stuff, absolutely everything I showed you is 100% free. As I was saying to this gentleman, outbound salespeople and so forth will sometimes pay a premium to get some extra stuff. And companies spend a lot of money in some cases to get some amazing tools to really manage their talent acquisition activities. But for the general public, no cost at all. Yes?
Okay, so I have 3 questions, so that's fine.
3 questions, all right, let's start with the first one and see how far we
How
go.
do you, when you say create a brand, like how does a student create a brand? Like let's say if you're studying science,
Right.
how do you create, like what recommendations do you have to create?
Sure, so how does a student create a brand? How do you make yourself stand out? Well, first off, write your profile in a way that shows you're smart and passionate and engaged in what it is that you are smart and passionate and engaged about. Don't just think of it as a dry listing of things. Have you been engaged in extracurriculars? Have you been engaged in competitions, case study competitions, science, whatever it is? What can you kind of shine a light on your successes will be one thing. And speak in the first person in that summary about your passion. That you're really, really passionate about getting into this industry. And so that's one piece of it. And then it also comes back to that engagement. And like I was saying, if you're often sharing articles, the latest news from the industries that are relevant to you, and you're making intelligent comments about those articles and getting engaged in groups and having intelligent conversations with others in that field, you're creating the brand of someone who knows what he's talking about in this area and is pretty passionate about it. Now imagine if I'm a recruiter and I'm checking you out and I'm seeing all that. And then I'm checking someone else out, and all I got is a resume on my desk. Who am I more interested in? That's how you build a brand.
And for the second question is how do you, when you say headline, right? So how do you, I guess my question may seem like but how do you headline effectively?
Yeah, how do you have an effective headline? Again, I would say for a student, it's probably engineering student and aspiring aerospace engineer, marketing student and aspiring luxury goods executive, whatever. Talk about where you are today and where you want to go. And then as a recruiter, I get that you're not an aerospace engineer yet, but you're on that path. So I'm going to think about you for entry-level engineering roles in aerospace.
Now my third question is so about building your networks and stuff. I guess how do you do that effectively? Because I just found I'm just hearing about this. I heard about it 2 months ago and now.
Right. So how do you effectively build a network? Number one,
From scratch.
yeah, from scratch. How do you build a network from scratch? Be patient. Take to heart what I said about quality over quantity. It's not a race. Trying to blast yourself into a multi-100-person network in a month is not going to work. You're going to annoy a lot of people, and you're going to end up with a very weak quality network if you do that. Engage people in a human way. I mean, start out with friends, fellow students, maybe people you've worked with in summer jobs, internships, whatever. That's the start. And as you go through your student days, and as you you may attend conferences, you may get involved in organizations, whatever it is, look at those as an opportunity not to say, okay, I need to go in there and make 50 connections this weekend. But when I am meeting people and I'm actually engaging people in a human way, I'm going to take that opportunity to invite them into my network. And you're not going to blow up a massive network overnight, but sincerely, I would rather have a network of 50 people that's quality than rather than 200 people who I don't know who the heck these guys are. Yes, thank you for your patience at the mic.
No, that's fine. I would like to thank you for this presentation. It's actually very informative and I learned a lot. I was definitely I am one of the passive users, but now I learned a lot of techniques of how to enhance my profile, so thanks for that. My questions are related to some etiquettes, some networking 101 etiquettes and social media networking etiquettes. So, okay, so LinkedIn is all about connecting with people. So what's the point of connecting? Is it that you have applied for that job and you want that person to kind of, like if it's a job posting that will get many resumes, is it that you want to turn their attention that you actually applied for that job, or is it that you would contact them to learn about opportunities at the place that they work at? So that's my first question.
Let me answer that before we move, because that's a really good question.
Okay.
Etiquette, and I didn't dwell on etiquette quite as much today as I sometimes do, because it is really important, so thank you for calling that out. I think I spoke to the etiquette around asking for recommendations, speaking a little bit here to the etiquette around connections. Job seeking etiquette, I would say, is don't go trying to connect with every recruiter or every person at a company who you're interested in a job there. You don't know them, they don't know you. This may not be the right time or place for you. Ultimately, are you going to add value to their network? Are they going to add value to yours? And also remember that recruiters and executives, they get a ton of requests, and they are prone to ignoring them unless there's something in it for them. So I would suggest you don't reach out and try to create that connection right away. You maybe reach out, maybe ask them for advice, maybe shoot them a note saying, hey, I'm super interested in this, and I've applied through your application process. I just wanted to shoot you a personal note to let you know that I've applied, and I'm really, really interested in the conversation. By the way, I know Bob who works in, whatever you can do to try to create a warm human connection, but don't ping them with a connection request. Let that fall over time. Maybe you get engaged in a conversation with this person. Maybe you get an interview. Maybe things progress and you don't get the job for whatever reason. Well, then maybe after that you say, I really enjoyed communicating with you around that. I would love to connect with you if you would be willing to connect with me. Done that way at that time, in most cases, they're probably going to go, what a classy person she is. Even though she didn't get the job, she wants to build a connection. They're much more likely to accept that request than if you just ping them right off the bat. I'd say not a day goes by that I don't get what I consider totally random connection requests from people who I don't know. And they don't even write me a note of explaining why they're trying to connect with me, just like Mary Lou wants to connect with Delete. I don't know who she is. I cannot help her, she cannot help me. It is not in keeping with me building a quality network to connect with her. And that rubs me the wrong way, and I'm sure that is the same for many, many, many people. I say, lead with the human connection. And whatever that is, let the LinkedIn connection follow. You'll build your network more slowly, but it'll be a way better network.
And my second question, I hope it's short. So basically LinkedIn is about using your resources and using the people around you. So how can you do it in a nice way, in a nice manner? So writing a message to a friend, they know that you're using them, but putting it in this manner is kind of rude. So how can you do it in such a way that you would effectively use their resources, but in a way maintain your friendship or them as a good connection?
I think honesty, openness, and integrity is what it comes down to. If you're constantly badgering people for introduce me here, that's your welcome is going to wear thin. Let me tell you a story about how I got my job at LinkedIn exactly that way. That I never would have got without LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the most in-demand employers in the world right now, and they are hiring people out of Google and Facebook and Microsoft and Oracle and all these incredible companies. I was working at a toy company. If I just submitted a resume, I would not have had an interview. I'm 100% sure of that. There must have been hundreds of applicants for my job who, on the surface, were more qualified than I was. I truly believe that there was a story there about why I was meant to be in this job, but I wasn't going to get the opportunity to tell that story unless I built that warm connection. So I set my sights on this role. I knew I was at a disadvantage, so I thought, what's my warm connection? Do I know anyone at LinkedIn? Nope. Do I know anyone who knows someone? Yes I do. A guy who I was a friend of, he actually lived over a store that I worked at. And we became friends, and we shared a lot of same, interests around academics and around business, and became friends. And although we hadn't really stayed in touch that much, we had a warm connection in the past. Well, he used to work, years ago, he worked at AOL with one of the guys who was, at that time, one of the top guys at LinkedIn Canada. There was my opportunity. So I researched the company, I researched the role, and I reached out to my friend in a really open and honest way, saying, look, I am super excited about this role at LinkedIn. Here's why I think I would be great at that role, and here's why I don't think that I'm going to get a look if I just go through, traditional methods of submitting a resume. Would you be willing to introduce me to your former colleague who's over at LinkedIn? And not only was he willing to, he wrote a glowing recommendation to his former colleague as to why they should look at me and interview me, even though on the surface I didn't look like the right guy. And I took it from there, one thing led to another, and not only did I get the job, I've been super successful in the job. So my belief that I was right for that role was not delusional. If it had been, if I kept reaching out to people saying, you've got to hook me up with that CEO role, it's not going to happen, right? People are going to think that, you're not thinking straight. So, honest with yourself about really the roles you ought to be going after, and then open and honest with people who you're asking to help. In this case, he was very happy to help because he saw the connection there. So if you're smart about it, you're not spammy about it, and you're open and honest about it, I think people are really, really willing and happy to help you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for all your advice. My question is, if you have an interest in qualifications in two different fields that are completely separate from one another, what would your description under your name be?
Right, and sometimes people will phrase that question in terms of, can I have two profiles? Because there's, me, the engineer, and there's me, the aspiring photographer. No, one profile, one individual, one profile. But it doesn't mean you have to be one-dimensional. And when you think back to this idea of brand rather than resume, being multifaceted, multidimensional actually makes you a lot more interesting person. So if you're an engineer and a photographer, build a profile that really speaks to both sides of what makes you tick. Because there's probably aspects of your engineering that make you a better photographer and aspects of your photography that make you a better engineer. And together, that's who you are. So think about your headline, think about your summary, think about the way you describe things. It shows both sides. And that should be your standard profile. But remember that you can change your profile anytime you want. So let's say you're interviewing tomorrow for an engineering job. Well, maybe you go in and you just dial down the photography, dial up the engineering. And then you don't get the job or whatever, and then maybe the next week you're going for more of a creative advertising role. Dial down the engineering, dial up the photography. I mean, always be truthful about who you are and what you are, but nothing says you can't. Just like you'll write a different cover letter for different opportunities, you can tweak your profile as well. But don't be afraid to have a profile that represents you as a multifaceted individual, because I actually think it's a lot more interesting than just being, I am this and that is all I am.
And you can add both descriptions within that title.
Well, yeah, sure. You could say, to carry on with this example, engineering student and passionate nature photographer. And right at the top of it, you go, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't often think of engineers as being nature photographers. I'm interested. Then I read the summary, and it says that you're, soon to graduate from engineering, and da 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 da, and you're really crazy about all this stuff, but you also love this stuff. It's all in there, and it just rounds you out as an individual.
Thank you very much.
Oh, hi.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I have 3 questions, and I'm sorry if you've already covered some of this in the first half hour because I was late. How far back should we go when we add our experience? Like,
Great
does
question.
it matter, or do we use our discretion?
Great question. Particularly relevant for people my age and above who have been around for a while. How far back do you go? There is no right answer. It's about relevance to what you're trying to do. Let's say I'm a marketing professional and I am deep in this industry and this is what I care about. And if I were to ever consider another role somewhere else, it's going to be a marketing role. If I look back through my history and 15 years ago I was doing something utterly unrelated to that, maybe it's time to drop that off. But sometimes people have stuff going back a long, long way that is relevant and has kind of made them who they are, and they're really proud of it. Then I say leave it in. You can also minimize how much you speak about it. In my profile, so I've got 4 or 5 job titles throughout my career, whatever it is. I write 2 paragraphs about my current job. I write like 1 paragraph about my most recent job. I write kind of 2 sentences about 3 jobs back, and then go back beyond that, I write 1 sentence. Manage this and that. It's there, it's kind of relevant, but it's not really super relevant. So I think ask yourself, again, put yourself in the place of the viewer. The person who's reading your profile, who are they, what do they want to find out? Give them the information that they need to form a good judgment of you. And if that information of a job from 15 years ago is helping, it should be there. If it's distracting or even counterproductive, get rid of it.
And I assume when having more experiences probably increases your chances of having more networks or connections. Right?
Yeah, it usually does. I mean, if you've been through a few different jobs, a few different industries, you tend to have a richer, more robust network. And if you got a bunch of people from, General Motors in your network, and yet you never worked at General Motors, that's kind of weird. So probably then having that General Motors job you used to have on there makes sense. But again, it's just what seems right for you and what tells the right story for who you are today and where you want to go tomorrow.
Question number 2 is to do with pictures. I've seen different kinds of pictures. Some of them look like they've been taken in a studio. Some of them are like action shots and whatnot. Do they matter at all?
They do, and that was covered in the first half hour. But just to quickly reiterate, in case anyone else missed it as well, a picture is valuable. Profiles with pictures get 7 times more click-throughs than those without. But it needs to be professional, and not professional insofar as it does not need to be taken in a studio by a professional photographer, although that's nice, but it doesn't have to be. Professional as in the clothes you wear, the environment. Don't stand on a beach with sunglasses on. Be wearing business attire. It could be just simply, you could have your friend take your picture on a half-decent camera of you wearing nice clothes and standing against a nice clean wall and then crop it so it's just a nice head and shoulders. Free and perfectly appropriate photo.
My 3rd question is, does LinkedIn automatically try to connect people without you sending requests?
LinkedIn suggests people that you may want to connect with, but does not do anything without your blessing. So you will see people that I forget the wording, I think it's people you may want to connect with. That's basically based on your profile and their profile and your connections and their connections. There's a decent likelihood that you know them, so we'll suggest them to you. But if you don't reach out to them, then nothing happens. Also, sometimes there is an option to upload your address book into LinkedIn, and then it'll ping out requests to people that are in your address book. I'm not speaking for the company here, just for myself. I'm not a huge fan of that because I very much believe in the slower, more human, personal, one-on-one outreach. But that is a way of doing it. But absolutely nothing happens without your explicit blessing and permission.
Because I get alerts from folks saying so-and-so has accepted your request when I haven't really requested it. Maybe
You must have uploaded your
contact.
and you maybe don't remember doing that because maybe it was a while ago. Not everyone uses their everyday email address on their LinkedIn account. So in some cases, that person, you maybe uploaded your address about 6 months ago and you forgot about it. A request went out to that person on their Hotmail account that they hardly ever use. And then they just went into it yesterday and saw it and went, oh, okay, accept. Now you're getting a thing saying, you know, Susan just accepted your connection. You don't remember sending it to her, but you did 6 months ago when you uploaded your address.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Welcome.
Steve, so we're just going to take these last two questions
Okay.
in line in the interest of time, and I know you said you'd stay after.
I'll stay. I love questions. So once we get booted from the stage, we can continue on. Yes.
Hello, how are you doing? So I have a quick question. A friend of mine mentioned a job seeker function in which you have a badge on your profile, and I was wondering if you can elaborate on that.
That's one of the versions of a premium account. It gives you some extra functionality for, I'm not even sure what it is, $25 or $50 a month or something like that. I don't know all the details of what it does. It gives you some more opportunities to reach out to recruiters and to others who may be interested in hiring you. And I believe there's a few other aspects of what it does. It's absolutely not necessary for job seeking success. I think there are some people who are using it and finding it very helpful for them, but there's also a lot of people who are having tremendous job seeking success without it. I believe that if you've got a great profile and you're conducting yourself as a great professional on the network and you're networking like a pro, you probably don't need something like that. But in terms of launching your career, it's not a lot of money if you want to kind of give yourself just like the latest and greatest tools. I'm not sure of all the details, but I'm sure that if you go into the section on LinkedIn about premium subscriptions, there'll be all the details on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have time for one more, Emma? Okay. Oh,
Just a quick question.
priority to the microphone.
Do you have any examples of creative or novel ways people have used LinkedIn that you can think of?
Well, yeah, one that always struck with me, it's not a student story, but I think it's relevant to everyone. We all like to look at that who's visited my profile thing just because we're curious. I spoke to a guy in Calgary who's a very, very successful consultant. And he told me that more than 50% of all of his business comes not just from LinkedIn in general, but from watching who's viewed his profile and then reaching out to those people and introducing himself. And he checks it out every day, figuring that if someone's looking at he's got this profile that's rich in information about the industry that he consults in and the topics upon which he is an expert and all these things. So he figures that if you look at his profile, you probably have some interest. He pings them with a note saying, hey, saw you're checking out my profile. Cool. I would love to chat with you. If there's anything I can ever do to help you, love to talk with you. More than 50% of his business comes from doing that. Such a simple thing that a tiny fraction, as far as I've seen, of professionals are doing. Little things like that are just really smart. Just watching for the cues as to what's going on in the world and in your world, and then acting on them. I thought that was really smart. So I mean, you could start, how do you bring that into a job seeker's mentality? Well, start thinking about who's really active in groups, who's talking about stuff, maybe reaching out to them and asking them if they have any advice for you. Maybe they know people that they can introduce you to. So just thinking about how this guy turns that one little signal of the fact that this individual viewed his profile, and he turns that into money for him, basically. So how can you turn those little signals happening in your network into opportunities for you? I'm sure there's numerous ways. That's just one story that comes to my mind. So I believe in the interest of time, we're going to get the booth, but happy to stay and happy to keep chatting. Thank you all very much for your time.
So I just want to add one thing. Can you hear me in the back? No? Oh. Yeah.
I'm not sure which one of these.
Probably the other.
Oh, that's an awful sound.
Can you unplug?
We know.
Oh, okay. That's awkward, Steve. I just want to say that I'm the employer liaison at the Career Center, and this year I've heard from almost all the employers that we've met that have come to panels that they all look on LinkedIn and look at LinkedIn profiles when recruiting. So, and I promise LinkedIn didn't pay me to say that. I'm telling you from my experience. So I want to personally thank Steve for coming to this event today and taking time out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate it. It's always so great to have York alumni reconnecting with us. So thank you, Steve. And thank you all.